Welcome to Trash Talk.
Hey guys, Andy Murrer here with Advanced One Development, and get ready for another episode of Trash Talk.
And I'm Blair. I'm here with Andy, just asking him some questions. This episode, we're hoping to talk about kind of what Advanced One does.
Well, Advanced One was originally incorporated to help support our internal projects and do gas system expansions and whatnot. And that's kind of the beginnings of it, but we ended up taking on more work outside of the internals and, going after bid projects and basically work in the marketplace. That's kind of the roots of it. Advanced One specializes in drilling and installing the vertical gas wells, trenching and laying the vacuum piping that runs up to the gas wells and provides vacuum to all the wells and manifolds all the gas to one central location at the blower and flare station. Yeah, so it's a lot of HDPE pipe fusion, trenching, and really a lot of different various trades for the plant development, such as any type of utility, water, compressed air. But yeah, the process and the equipment that we use to install our gas collection and control systems really hasn't changed a whole lot. I think what's really evolved is the safety side of everything, as far as just making sure that we're looking out for each other, wearing all of our PPE, high vis, radio communication, gas monitors to protect us from potential harmful gases in the landfill, stuff like that.
When you talk about gas monitors, do you guys also use the black line device?
We use a RKI gas monitor.
Okay.
And the only difference there is this does not have the capability of contacting emergency first responders. It will beep. There's 4 different types of gases it's detecting. Once elevated levels are detected, it'll sound an alarm that you really can't miss. H2S is probably our biggest concern. Carbon monoxide being another one. And then, it does monitor their oxygen levels. So when oxygen starts to lower to a certain amount or a certain level, it'll start to alarm us as well.
If you didn't have that piece of device, how would you guys know when things are maybe things aren't doing too hot?
There's a lot of common sense that goes into what we're doing is in protecting yourself and making sure that you're breathing a safe atmosphere. But yeah, use your nose. Make sure you're not standing downwind from certain pipes or wells or whatnot. If we're in the middle of doing a tie-in to a main header or lateral pipe, that's going to be a situation that's going to introduce a lot of gas to the atmosphere that we're working in. But just in general, if you're riding around a landfill, you're not really subjecting yourself to harmful gases. It's really when you start kind of opening up trenches and drilling and doing tie-ins to active piping. There's been a lot of cases where we've had to make a tie-in to an active line that's flowing landfill gas. And one of the best practices that we use is, unfortunately, you have to shut up a plant down or a generator because you're going to introduce some oxygen into the system. But you can run a blower flare system most of the time while you're making the tie-in. It's going to suck in a lot of oxygen, but it protects our guys from big slug of gas, in their faces. Instead of, if everything's shut down, you're going to have positive gas that's coming out of the lines. But if you keep a vacuum on the lines, it's going to have negative pressure pulling air in, where at that point you can be doing a tie-in and it's introducing little to no additional gas to the atmosphere that the guys are working in. Otherwise, we have pinch tools. We actually have these devices that literally pinch the tool and crimp it all the way to the point where literally it's closed off. And so that'll prevent gas from coming in the guys' faces. And the pipe that we work with is HDPE. It's a poly plastic pipe. So once you remove these pinch tools, you can basically form the pipe back into a perfect circle without breaking it. Also, a well-designed gas collection system will have isolation valves. That's one of the first control measures that we'll use, is just closing off valves and letting lines purge out before we're doing tie-ins. So yeah, utilizing some of the equipment, some of the mechanical controls that are installed in the gas systems is also a really, really good way to make sure the guys are safe. So a lot of times we'll go in to an existing landfill and try to identify any issues that they have, whether it's a belly in a pipe, which will introduce surging in the line, inefficiencies as far as areas in the landfill that maybe they don't have enough wells for sufficient gas collection coverage, or what I was just talking about with isolation valves, if they don't have the mechanical controls in place, we can actually, cut valves into lines and install them so that in the future, we have that option. There's a lot to that as far as, just making sure that we are getting as much gas out of the hill as possible. Sometimes, we identify that the pipe that's been installed is undersized, and, we'll replace lines with a larger diameter to just make sure that the gas system can maximize efficiencies as far as the volume of gas that we're pulling out of the hill. Some sites are full of water, so we'll identify that and install a pump system where we're virtually installing a pump down well that'll actually evacuate the water. If a well's full of water, you're not going to get gas out of it. Once you evacuate the water, gas can then collect into a well. Every once in a while, you'll go up to a well and you might hear a tss. So basically what happens is there's a cylinder that goes down into the well, and there's a float, kind of like a sump pump, where the float reaches a certain level and it triggers a valve, and air pushes down, and the cylinder fills up with water, and once the air pushes the float back down and evacuates the water.
Maybe this is a dumb question, but why can't the gas be wet?
It's a simple explanation of, if your well is full of water and you try pulling on it, you're literally just going to get ambient air, like bad gas quality. You want as much methane as possible. You want to reduce your levels of nitrogen and oxygen. I'd say nitrogen and oxygen in an RNG facility are, two of your worst enemies. You want to make sure that's as close to zero as possible. So yeah, there's, you'll see at the plant, there's different phases throughout the process that will actually focus on specific gases, nitrogen removal or oxygen removal. Basically any non-methane molecule gets stripped out.
It's like, where do you guys generally build your plants or try to work?
Really anywhere, as long as it's a viable project. How much waste is in place? Are the people that we'd end up working with, are they people that live up to our core values? Are they people that we want to work with? There's a lot of different factors. Is there a end user that we can potentially sell the gas to? Interconnect, is there a pipeline within the vicinity, and volume of gas that we could potentially collect from the hill? Working on a landfill, you're very exposed to the elements. It's actually a compliance issue if there's a tree, for example, growing on the hill where a tree might provide a little bit of shade. You're exposed. So when it's hot, whatever it is out of the landfill, add 10, 15 degrees once you get to the top of the landfill. And then once you open up a trench, it feels like the temperatures actually elevate even more, and kind of radiates the smells and everything that's kind of gross about a landfill, I guess. So the heat's pretty challenging for sure. I've seen a lot of guys, have dehydration issues in the past. And, so we really got to be careful and make sure that we're taking breaks, and, that the guys are drinking as much water and Gatorade as possible. And in the winter months, it's same kind of concept. You take like a wind chill into effect. As soon as you go up onto the hill, you can add 10 or 15 miles an hour of wind to whatever you're experiencing off the hill. It's just it's definitely a challenge in both ways. But I guess if I had to pick, I'd probably choose the heat, mainly because you can usually get a lot more footage in the ground, having better conditions. But the winter, everything seems to move a little bit slower. And depending on where you are in the country, we've been in some areas in the Midwest working in the dead of winter where, when you say cold, it's like frigid cold. So we've really been up against some really extreme lows and some really extreme highs. We do try to target, based on climate and everything and the timing of the year. Like, we don't want to put our crew up on a project in the middle of the winter in the north. We try to kind of target the southern opportunities if we can help it, and just the opposite for summertime. Advanced One does a lot of work in the marketplace where we'll go in and do a construction project for a customer where we have a specific scope of work. We go in, we complete the work, and then we're out. So yeah, that's basically just a construction contract where they might want us to expand into an area of the landfill that was just filled, and they reached the max elevation as far as waste is concerned, and the filling operations moved to a different area. Now it's time to expand the gas system to that spot where we might be installing 10 to 15 wells, running some more header piping and laterals to collect the gas. Once we're complete, we invoice and shake hands and we're out.
And with you being kind of like, because you've definitely, an advanced one, you've definitely gone through kind of each position in a sense. What would you say, I don't know, maybe is your personal favorite, or just something that you've seen that you really enjoyed?
I really liked working from the field. That's kind of my roots, where I came from. But just like any other startup company, you kind of have to get your hands into a little bit of everything. So in the beginning, we were kind of doubling as project managers, superintendents, equipment operators, all the way down to general labor and actually getting the pipe in the ground. So we were in the office doing the material orders, and then we'd travel to the site. We'd actually receive the same material that we had just ordered, and then we're on the site for weeks or months at a time, getting everything installed. Back to your question, though, I don't know. It's been a kind of a transition over the past 5 to 6 years or so, I would say, where I'm primarily in the office working on the business, less in it. But having been in the field and having the experience of doing everything that the crew guys are doing, I think it's pretty valuable to be able to talk to the guys and tell them, like, hey, not asking you to do anything that I have never done myself. When they talk about what they're doing, I know exactly what they're talking about. I hope I give them the confidence that, hey, I hear you, I understand, and a lot of times I'll be able to troubleshoot, kind of help walk them through certain things without actually physically being there.
That's a skill for sure to have, just even being able to verbally communicate things like that to people on a phone.
Well, I'm a highly skilled person.
There you go. I should have known.